We recently spoke with Ben Davidson, who talked to us about the potential for a polar shift. The planet's poles shifting, the Earth tilting down, and this does happen. This is not conspiracy. This is true. This is a fact. We had him on the show, and I will say it may be a bit alarming and a bit sensational. The scary thing about it is that it sounds world-ending. It seems to a lot of people too crazy to believe because we have an optimism bias, and we don't want to believe that these cataclysmic events could actually happen. But there are some interesting anomalies, such as there are glaciers in Indonesia. I didn't know this. Yeah, it's warm, it's tropical, and there are mountaintop glaciers, indicating that at some point, water froze in large quantities and then somehow moved into an area that is pretty warm. But here's what we're going to do. Instead of me prattling on about it, we're going to bring in Ben Davidson and get him to talk to us exactly about what is going on. We've got him standing by. Let's get that camera rolling and then bring him in right now. Let's see if I can get this right. Ben, can you hear me?
I can, Tim. Good to see you again.
Likewise. Thanks for joining me. This is really interesting. A couple of stories that I find really interesting, in fact, that I've been going over. The first is the day before this power outage, The Guardian wrote an op-ed saying solar storms could lead to nuclear disasters. Then we get a day later this massive power outage in Europe that they're saying is due to an atmospheric phenomenon. I'm wondering if you want to break down for us what you think happened here, and then we'll figure out where to go from there.
Absolutely. Well, the official explanation that they're giving is about 80% correct. Their official explanation is that extreme temperatures caused an atmospheric oscillation, which resulted in a desyncing and induction event into the high voltage lines. Things weren't matching up, and basically the entire system had a cascading failure.
Okay, but real
now,
quick.
Most of that is correct.
How,
go ahead.
So wait, all of this sounds like very technical jargon to us. Like, what's the layman's terms? Like, the temperature caused the electricity, vibrations. What is this?
Essentially, there is some pretty high-level physics involved with the atmospheric oscillation thing, but essentially what they're saying is extreme temperatures caused this electric surge to go through and shock the system and basically break it. That would be the simplest version. Now, that is what happened in terms of the breakage, but there was no extreme heat. It would take such extreme heat to do that you don't find that anywhere on Earth. Not to mention the fact that temperatures in the area yesterday were about a half a degree above normal, and normal for the end of April in the Iberian Peninsula of Europe is just not that hot.
I think it was reported at like 70 degrees.
It was not too hot. It was complete nonsense. Now, there are two things that are really interesting. One, they were noticing a surge in the solar power output. Basically, the solar panels, for some reason that they can't understand or explain, surged power through the system. Now, while this was happening, I was taking a look at the data about the ionosphere, which is the electric layer up at the top of the atmosphere. It got hit. It took a major hit. And then you could see this energy coming down through the atmosphere through what we call the global atmospheric electric circuit, where not only can you see it vertically moving up and down, but you can use the ground level winds to see where it's going to go. It follows the water vapor in the atmosphere, in the wind. Water, electricity, they kind of like each other. And so you could see it coming down, and then that electricity surge go right into Portugal, Spain, and France at the exact same time.
Wow.
As the blackout. Now, here's the interesting thing. They have a pretty good idea about what that was, but the fact that they also saw the solar panels inexplicably surge their output at the exact same time is the definitive clue. I don't know if you ever watched the movie The Core about Earth's magnetic field failing. So they go full Hollywood sci-fi idiot realm about 25 minutes in. But the opening scenes, those are accurate. A weak spot in Earth's magnetic field, it's not all of a sudden the whole globe collapses. It starts with a weak spot here or a weak spot here. And then there's a plasma breakthrough, which also allows extra ultraviolet to break through due to a temporary depression of the ozone in that layer. And so at the same time as this plasma breaking through, and I watched it do that, I watched it come down through the atmosphere, they were also noticing an ultraviolet surge in the solar panel production. So that's both things you expect. The particles, the plasma coming in, the electrically charged material, and the light, the ultraviolet light coming through the same hole. It was that exact same thing from the movie, although the movie, the movie made it seem like it was extreme enough to burn people's skin. Welcome to Hollywood. Essentially what we have is, I've been on your shows twice already talking about the fact that we're in a magnetic pole shift, that things are getting a little scary and they're accelerating faster and faster. This was one of the things I really started to expect to see in the 2030s. We're a little early on that. And I had to admit to my viewers, I can't really account for how quickly these things have been happening since about March of 2023. Our timeline was pretty solid with what we were expecting, but in about the last 2 years and change, things have just been going way too quickly. The Earth is taking way too big a hits from basically anything the sun throws at us. And then 2 days ago, the sun didn't even throw anything at us. This was just a hole in Earth's magnetic field, a weak spot. The plasma broke through, the ultraviolet broke through the depressed ozone at that time. And, I don't know whether it was the extra ultraviolet surging through the solar panels, or more likely in my head, the plasma actually coming down and integrating directly into the system, which is the electric shock that some of the experts are talking about, that hit the one system and basically caused a violent fluctuation that collapsed the system over those three countries. Or it's both of them combined. So either one of them could do it, but their cause is really the story here, why it happened.
Is there any possibility? I don't know what the official explanation Puerto Rico's given for their power outage last week. Is there any relation to that?
So that happened less than 60 seconds after the solar storm began that day. That one was solar driven.
Really?
And it was very clear. The solar storm began and Puerto Rico went black. It was literally boom, boom, 1-2 punch. As fast as when you punch someone, how fast they hit the ground. That's how fast it was.
So have they given an official explanation for why the power went out? Have they said it was a solar storm or something?
They have noted that that there was a solar storm at the same time. They have not officially declared anything for the Puerto Rico event.
You know what's really crazy about all this? The reason why I'm excited to have you on is, you were here not even that long ago on Tim. I think it was either the Culture War or IRL talking to us about how we are going to see the magnetosphere weaken. We're going to see power outages. And so when this power goes out, exactly as you described, either you're extremely lucky with your crackpottery or you're correct. So I don't know what to expect from here, though. Some people still want to believe it's a cyber attack. I think people are going to put their worldview on this.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Look, I certainly entertain the possibilities of cyber attack in all things, especially because we actually have the data that we're constantly under cyber attack. However, I don't want to rule out sitting down with a guy who told me this would happen, and then it happens, and then act like, you didn't predict something. But
go
ahead.
So, for example, we can look at some of the evidence. If you find a dead guy and there's a bullet hole in his forehead, you can probably rule out heart attack or, diabetes kind of thing. We know exactly what caused this blackout in Europe. There was an electric shock to the system that caused violent fluctuations, way more than what the AC system is supposed to be handling. Basically, the wrong Hertz oscillation. And that's not what would happen if, say, the elites just cut off the power. That's not what would happen if it was hacked. That could be what happened during a solar storm as well, but that's because a solar storm is going to do the exact same thing that a plasma penetration through a weak hole in Earth's magnetic field is going to do. There have been tons of these outages before. Like, I don't know if you recall, there were a couple of them last year and the year before, and I was always really hesitant to call them out because I didn't have all of the data, but they have now released all the data out of Europe from 2 days ago. It's very clear what happened and that it was a sync issue. And so either all of that other atmospheric data and the solar panel data is telling us that this was Earth's magnetic pole shift, you know, hinting at the world, hey, I'm coming, or at the exact perfect moment, some idiot at the control board hit the wrong button. I mean, so, like,
maybe
it's possible.
Yeah,
it's possible, but
well, it's hard for people to believe that there's going to be such a cataclysmic event. But let's break this down. If this is a sign of a pole shift, what's causing it in your view, and what does that mean next?
So that could get pretty complex. But essentially, this is a cycle on Earth. Earth's magnetic field spends several thousand years pretty normal, like we have now, easily protecting us from the sun and cosmic rays, all the scary stuff out in space. But then every few thousand years, it just decides it's going to glitch out, and it goes through a pole shift, and it gets very weak, and that space energy comes in and basically starts attacking the atmosphere. Now, in civilizations past, it was mostly a radiation and climatological issue. It affects the ozone, as I mentioned. It affects water vapor in the clouds, so it affects clouds, rain, storms, wind, things like that. Not to mention the extra ultraviolet, which we already mentioned, and those particles themselves aren't exactly good if they hit your DNA or they start messing with your electrolytes in your body. There's a reason we call them that, and this is electromagnetic radiation we're talking about. But now we also have an electro-dependent society. People think, oh, you just turn the faucet and water magically comes out. Well, it's not magic. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on with that. They think that, oh, food just shows up in the grocery store. I don't think they realize how much transportation and refrigeration and logistics go into something like that. Or the heating or air conditioning in their house, the internet, 911, banking, gas stations, all transactions that aren't cash. It all stops. It all stops. And when the government did this study on what's going to happen when the sun takes out power, and it could be applied to Earth's magnetic pole shift taking out power, 90 to 95% of our species is gone in 6 months.
Wow. There was an article that I mentioned a little bit previously. The Guardian wrote this. It was published in the morning of the 28th, that a solar storm could cause nuclear disasters on the East Coast. If it knocks out power on the East Coast for about a month or longer, then the emergency reserves shut down, the cooling systems shut down, and then you get a runaway reaction, meltdowns at all of these reactors. It's fascinating to me that they're publishing that story, and then we literally get these power outages. I don't know. You know, the way I describe it is, if experts are saying it might be a long shot, but these things are possible and they might happen, and then you get the power outage fear due to what they're calling induced atmospheric vibration, I believe that was the phrase, right? Then part of me just says, maybe they're right, and there is this risk of these extreme weather phenomenon. Now, I do think we'll probably hear from a lot of liberals that it's climate change or something like that. They'll try to shift it into a political argument they can capitalize on. But I suppose
they do that.
They do. What's the timeline? I mean, you said this happened faster than you thought it was going to happen.
Right. So the math that I've been using, I mean, based on tracking where the magnetic field strength is, suggested that we should be having the main event of the magnetic pole shift in the late 2040s. Now, that's a little confusing, because as our magnetic field weakens, we become more and more vulnerable to things like that plasma breakthrough 2 days ago, or anything that the sun throws at us. You know, the sun could throw a little love tap at us, and it's like a haymaker from Mike Tyson when it hits, because our shield isn't what it's supposed to be. So I don't know if we are going to wait until the 2040s or if next week the sun is going to take out power to the world and we have to live like cavemen for 20 years until the pole shift. There's a lot of unknowns here, but this is kind of a process of we don't know when we're getting to the finish line, but there's guardrails. There's no way off this road. It is all downhill and our brakes don't work. We're getting to the finish line. This is going to happen. We're perfectly due in time. It happens about every 6,000 years to some extent. It's 6,000 years from the last one. What's happening? Oh, the magnetic field is shifting again. This is exactly what's happening. We're starting to see all of the effects that we'd expect to see. If it wasn't so damn terrifying, I would be patting myself on the back right now.
Did you know that the government's been expanding Raven Rock and Mount Weather?
They're doing a lot of stuff right now.
For people who don't know, these aren't the only emergency bunkers that they have. But a couple of years ago, I think Congress passed a budget for the expansion of Mount Weather and Raven Rock. Fans of the Fallout series know exactly what this is. It's where government officials and powerful individuals expect to go in the event of some kind of catastrophe. And so the question we were asking is like, what catastrophe are they preparing for? Or are they just spending money as they do? There was also a report that Zuckerberg built an underground bunker. That was definitely overhyped. It certainly is.
Yes,
it's an underground space. It's secure, but it's not really that big. They were trying to make it sound like he went to some faraway island to build a facility. And he bought a big house on a Hawaiian island and gave himself an emergency room or whatever.
Yeah,
but
essentially, somebody doesn't like some of the new money guys because they didn't tell him all the information. What a terrible place to build your bunker. It's almost like their opinion on people like Mark Zuckerberg is that he's a mushroom.
Well, so
feed him crap, keep him in the dark.
Right.
But take a look at what Jeff Bezos is doing. He's hollowing out that mountain across the street from the Blue Origin launch facility.
Yeah.
Richard Branson's $45 million bunker is right under the control tower for Virgin Galactic. And SpaceX and the Boring Company are Elon's. All the billionaires are planning, hey, we might need to go up. We might need to go down. Let's put them in the exact same place so we can decide at a moment's notice.
That is kind of funny that you got two billionaires that are basically like, we need to get to space now. So you think these? Let me start here. These stories have been around for like a decade, actually. They in New Zealand, they're building mountainside bunkers. In that movie Kingsman, they land a plane in the side of a mountain. That's not science fiction. They're building that. They're building landing strips in mountains.
Yep.
Do you think this is the reason? I mean, you probably do.
Oh yeah,
right?
Definitely. They've known this was coming since the 1940s when they classified Project Nanook.
What is that?
So they sent Major Maynard White up to the Canadian Arctic to sort of set up shop. They were worried Russia was going to come over the top. But what they were doing, because obviously you have to figure out how to navigate, and so they needed to understand how to do that so close to the magnetic pole. And when they started digging down and looking for things, they found a layer of polar fossils, then tropical fossils, then polar fossils, then tropical fossils, indicating that it's not just a magnetic shift. The world is going to turn over and send the oceans into the land. This is why
the Great Flood.
The mammoths were found like they were found. They dug them out of 30 feet of ice and said, oh, they froze instantly. Here's the problem. They froze in the glacial cycle. It was 20 degrees colder. If there's 30 feet of ice there now, there wasn't anything to eat back then. What were they doing there? And the answer is they weren't there. They were somewhere near the equator, and then they got put at the poles when the Earth tilted and froze instantly.
So is this going to cause a flood?
Oh, my goodness, yes. Oh, my goodness, yes.
I wonder if that's what, I heard this. I don't know if it's true, but every civilization has some kind of flood myth.
They do. Have you ever seen the future U.S. Navy map of the United States or any of the remote viewed future maps of the United States where it shows water basically connecting the Gulf of America to the Great Lakes, and some of them show it going all the way up to Hudson Bay?
No, I haven't.
That's what's, look up future U.S. Navy map of the United States, and there's water going from the Gulf of America all the way up to the Great Lakes.
Wow.
And that's what's going to happen. The way the world is going to turn this time, and we can tell the way it's going to turn, the Gulf of America is going to shoot northward, and basically at that time, the New Madrid Fault's going to be shaking like crazy, causing liquefaction. Isostatic adjustment from the water weight is going to push down the center of the United States. The lack of water in the Gulf of Mexico is going to cause that land to lift up, and the water is not going to be able to come back. It's just going to sit there in the center of the United States and cut our country in half. I feel really bad for everybody who's going to the Ozarks to survive. That's going to be underwater.
Well, we're okay in West Virginia, I think. I looked at that map, and we seem to be all right.
Yeah, the water's not going to hit West Virginia, although I have to say the initial wave might hit you guys pretty hard. It depends on what your elevation is.
So where do you got to be?
I prefer a mile up.
So, like, you can't be in Colorado. I think this map, yeah, Colorado's got like 20%.
Colorado. I like Colorado. I like the mountains of Mongolia.
Wow.
There are a couple of places in Peru, I think, look pretty good. Some of those ones in Mongolia, technically, they stretch down into China as well.
What about Nebraska?
Very few good places in Europe. Very few.
What is this map? This is interesting. I Google searched what you said, and the U.S. Map of future America. There's posts all over the place about this. Where did this come from?
Sure.
The Digital Public Library of America.
This is a fun one to go down. It's a fun rabbit hole to go down. But essentially, something like this is going to happen. And it's not just the United States. Giant waves are going to take out most of China, India, Europe, all but the central region of the central high regions of Africa near the rift, like some of those volcanoes.
But this was, as you mentioned, it's like future sight. There was a psychic person saying they saw this. I mean,
right. I don't believe in that stuff, but it's interesting that this is what's probably going to happen, and none of the other stuff I said is based on like remote viewing or psychics or stuff. I happened to know about this map, and then it was like, oh, wait a minute. I've seen this before. And so I was like, wait a minute, that's exactly what that remote viewer said was going to happen. And so that's kind of an interesting and fun little coincidence.
I think we talked about this.
Matches up with that.
I think we did talk about this last time, but you said the Earth's going to tilt. So it's like a 90-degree tilt?
Yep.
And that means that, what, like the North and the South Poles become the equator? And he's got a globe.
Take Greenland there. And just put it at the equator such that up here at the top is India and at the bottom is South America. And if you get basically that's what the world's going to look like.
So what does that mean for the United States? We're Southern Hemisphere now? I mean,
we're Southern Hemisphere, places like Colorado, Pennsylvania, about the same latitude, just in the south. Canada and Mexico swap climates. Montana and Texas swap climates. Maine and Florida swap climates.
What's a timeline for this? I mean, I know you mentioned we start seeing stuff in the 2040s.
That should be happening in the 2040s at some point.
But this?
Obviously, we could get thrown back into caveman status before that. So.
Right. That's what you were saying. That before that even happens, our grid's going to go down. The plasma? Is that it's going to fry our electronics?
Yeah, that's almost certainly going to happen before that.
You know, I got to tell you, we talk about the prospect of civil war and civil conflict. And now 8 years ago, it's in the mainstream media. I'm talking about it, and people are just mocking the idea. Oh, you're crazy, Tim. You shouldn't even bring this up. Now we've got prominent liberals saying, I think we're going to go into a civil war because of the political landscape. It's interesting to see that this phenomenon was doubted in the United States. The fact that there could be powerful political interests at odds with each other, nobody believed it. Some people are finally coming around. The reason I mention this is that political squabbles are facts of life that happen all the time. Countries all the time go through this stuff, and people still couldn't believe it. And so my concern, there's two things. One, I definitely don't want to overhype that the world's going to end or it's going to flip over, everyone's going to die. And so there is a natural bias to be like, come on, man, that can't really happen. That's insane. But then there's the also, don't be stupid in thinking you know exactly what can or can't happen if you've not researched it. So I think the challenge is going to be for a lot of people. They hear what you're saying and they think, this is crack pottery. This is nuts. It's not going to happen. Power sometimes go out. Why should I believe any of this? My fear then is, regardless, whether it's political or scientific, people don't prepare. They kind of just coast, you know?
Yeah.
So I suppose with just that being said, what should a sane, rational person do, not wanting to be the guy storing 30 years worth of beans in his basement, but also concerned about the power going out, or even politics? Like, what would you do?
Start paying attention to more stuff like this. And when my documentary on this exact thing comes out, and I've got people from NASA and professors who are finally willing to get some balls and actually talk to the camera, which they've already done. We've got the interviews. Things are about to change because they have been too afraid to talk about this. Okay, they'll publish a paper in a journal and then not talk about it. They'll make some commentary, or they'll take these observations and they'll put them in data sets and then not talk about it. They're going to talk about it now.
You know what I think the issue is for everything? What? The economy is delicate. Let's say we want to build a spaceship. So people may be wondering, if this was true, they'd be talking about it, right? No, I disagree. I'll tell you why. Elon Musk wants to build spaceships. Jeff Bezos wants to build spaceships. They also want to build underground bunkers. If the economy shuts down, that won't happen. If you were to come out right now, if a politician, if Trump went on TV and said, look, we're dealing with a cataclysmic event, be with your loved ones for now and start focusing on survival, the people who build these specific specialties their focus is gone. Elon's going to say, I need a guy to work a control center for a spaceship. And the idea is we're advancing human life. But what if you go to that control guy and tell him, you've got 5 years to prepare for a cataclysm? He's going to be like, I better start building a bunker now to protect myself and my family. I recently talked with Secretary of Transport, Sean Duffy, about UAPs, UFOs, and just general transport stuff, planes. And one thing he mentioned was, if we actually knew what these things were, people would, and we told people, they would freak out. So do you really want to know? You know, most people respond with, yeah, I do want to know. But if you're trying to build a spaceship, you don't want anyone to know. You want everyone to keep their blinders on, build the components, and build the spaceship, build the ark, whatever it may be, so that people can escape.
It's not just that, but what trucker is driving food all the way across the country with that awareness in his head? What cop is responding to a potential shooting in that circumstance? Who's going to work at all the very next day once the world knows that? They'll destroy everything that you'd want to save in the first place if they told us the truth.
Do you remember when that fake nuclear strike alert hit Hawaii?
Yes, I remember that.
You know, the stories, a lot of people don't talk about it, but some stories came out about what people did when they got those notifications. And let's just say those people were very embarrassed. But look, everybody's phone off saying, nuclear strike imminent, seek shelter now. And then, oopsie, it was an accident. Someone pressed the wrong button. But the reaction people had to just that, not so family friendly, but you can understand what some of these stories might be. And they immediately regretted, oops, we thought we were going to die. So we just, did things that we normally would not do. But I do appreciate you joining to talk about all this. Is there any final thoughts you want to add before we wrap up?
No, this is going to be happening more and more, and it's going to get much, much worse.
Right on. Well, Ben, where can people find you?
Space Weather News YouTube channel. Much appreciated.
Right on, man. Well, thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you next time.
Good to see you, Tim.
Take care.